Good afternoon once again, and thanks to all of you for waiting for the webinars to start. Thanks a lot for taking out time to be here today. As you know, the webinar is on performance matters. Before I hand over, the control to our expert, I would like to just take some time to set the context for today's webinar. As you would understand that the ubiquity of mobile devices and proliferation of Wi-Fi has radically transformed customer behavior. And in today's world, meeting the increased customer expectations has become the top business challenge for organizations. And as research shows that underperforming websites disappoint customers and drive away business instantly. So my question to you all is, do you really understand what customers expect from their online experiences with you? Do you know that what the challenges in delivering to this expectation is and how organizations around the world are dealing with this challenge? So let us look at some of these questions and try to find their answers in today's webinar. Joining us in the webinar is Mr. Srinivas Padmanabharao. He is the Director for Web Performance for APJ for Akamai, and he is based in Akamai's Bangalore office. He is an experienced industry professional with 18 years of experience in the IT and telecom industries, working across various countries, and as the Director of Web Performance, he focuses on helping customers understand the role of Akamai solutions in leveraging the power of the internet to achieve business success. So with that, let me not take more time and hand it over to Srinivas to take it forward from here. One more thing before Srinivas starts, you all can type in your questions in the chat window and keep sending us the questions while the presentation is on, and we will take these questions at the end of the presentation. Or alternately, there is also a hand button. You can raise the hand, click on the hand button, and we will come back to you for the question. So please keep sending your questions over chat, and we will keep queuing them for taking them later on. Thanks. So Srinivas, over to you now.
Thank you very much, Shipra, and good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of myself as well and Sifi and Akamai, thanks a lot for taking time to join today's webcast. As you know, the subject for today's session is performance matters. And what I'll do is, over the course of the next little while, walk you through a bunch of different topics related to performance. And primarily, the agenda for today's call is for us to share, or for me to share with you, the results of some of the most recent research we did. We did a lot of primary research with customers around the world on what people expect from their experiences online. And I'll share with you the results of that research, and also share with you why some of those challenges exist in today's world and what you can actually do to solve those challenges. So that's pretty much the broad context of the webinar for today. Before we get into the real content itself, I just want to set the context by kind of situating how we experience the web today. So if you look at this picture, most of us will probably not recognize anything in this, because this is not how we actually access the internet today. But it was not very long ago that this was a very common situation where people would be mostly, stationary, have a very good connection, both from a power and an internet quality perspective, and would have basically unlimited data access. This isn't how, the internet is accessed today. This is probably a more realistic picture of how the internet is accessed today, right? Whether it happens to be in planes, in coffee shops, in stations, in our respective homes and beds while sleeping, like all kinds of different places. This is how we experience the internet. And what we like to refer to that as the situational performance, which means that the web needs to perform for our users in different situations, which are no longer the one single static, stationary kind of access that used to be the norm not many years ago. And the kind of usage experiences are also very short and fragmented. So you can see some words here like want to know moments and want to do moments and so on. What they're referring to is the fact that when we go online, it's not a long drawn out 2-hour exercise for us to start research on a particular subject, complete the whole thing, and then kind of log off the internet. Like it's far more, situational in terms of how we use it, far more fragmented, and we kind of go do things for a few minutes here, a few minutes there, sometimes a few seconds here and there. And that's kind of how we experience the internet. And we need to be able to, as organizations delivering content and experiences and applications and websites and apps and so on, cater to this kind of an audience in terms of how we deliver our experiences. So with that, kind of high-level context, let's get straight into the findings of the research that we conducted across the world. So this research we did was actually conducted in partnership with a leading market research firm. We actually surveyed about 3,480 people, I think, across the globe in different countries, in the US, in Europe, in Japan, in Asia Pacific, and on a variety of dimensions. And the whole objective of the exercise was, as outlined here, to identify some of the insights and preferences and trends amongst consumers in how they access the internet and use it for a variety of things, and specifically financial and e-commerce kind of services. But the same kind of experiences we found through reference also apply to users trying to access applications and SaaS and other kinds of tools on the internet as well. So the research findings are fairly broadly applicable. And if I were to summarize the results of the research in kind of two main themes, these would be it, which is that performance matters and mobile is now. And what I mean by these and what kind of data we found to back each of these is what I'll share with you over the next few minutes. And we kind of found about 8 or 9 very key call-outs that we could make based on the research that we did and the kind of data we received back from the primary findings of the research. So let's begin by kind of looking first at the performance matters part of it, and then we'll go into the mobile is now piece. So this is the first of the findings that we had, which as you can see here says 49% of users expect the website or the app to basically load in less than 2 seconds. And remember that these 2 seconds are independent of the situation that the particular user is in. So it has to load within 2 seconds, whether he happens to be using it on his or her desktop in the office, or happens to be using it on a small mobile phone near a wireless tower, or maybe inside a subway, train, or wherever, right? So there's different kinds of situations for access, but the expectation of the user is that these websites load within 2 seconds. And that's a fairly onerous ask when you consider where the infrastructure might be located and the kind of intervening bandwidth and lots of other conditions that affect performance. The second finding from the research, which is very interesting, is that approximately 18% of users are not even willing to wait 2 seconds. They basically expect it to be instant. And this is very important because a very similar research that we did about 4 years ago, this number was around the 5 to 6%, which means in the last 4 or 5 years, the expectations of users in terms of speed has, on this dimension, more than tripled. So more than 3 times as many users today expect basically the websites to be instantaneous. And some of us can relate to it from our own experiences, right? If we have to wait for a page to load, we'll probably wait for 1, 2, 3 seconds before we just cancel it and move on and try and do something else, or look for the same information or the same good on some other website. So we can relate to it from an intuitive, end user consumer experience, but the research backs that up to say, half the users expect it to be less than 2 seconds, while 18% of them actually expect it to be fairly instantaneous. And organizations trying to deliver experiences on the internet need to find ways of trying to match these kinds of expectations of the users. The third research finding we had was that basically when you start using the web, there are times of the day, times of the year when traffic volumes go up, and for very obvious reasons. Typically, many of us tend to start browsing the net using our phone when we have a morning drive into office, into work, or on an evening commute back home. We tend to see a lot more usage of kids when they come back home from school. When there is holiday shopping, you see a lot more traffic on the internet. There are very valid reasons why you see spikes and dips in internet traffic. But what's important is that half of them report a slowdown of their experience when the traffic when the traffic is actually high, which, while it sounds intuitive, is actually bad because people are still expecting that less than 2-second performance. And not only that, for 82% of those who had slow performances, it went as bad as saying basically the page didn't load. That's what when we say have website access prevented. To an end user, it means the page didn't load and I couldn't do anything that I wanted to do on it. And that basically means it's a non-functional website for all practical purposes. And that's obviously not good for any business trying to transact on the internet. And of those people who had these bad experiences, 50% basically gave up, and 1 of 5 said I'll never come back. Now think about it. If every peak season, every peak time, you start dropping 20% of your users, 1 in 5, who will never ever come back to your website or never actually go back and try that same transaction or access the same kind of content again, then you're basically losing a very, very big portion of your potential user base and customer base on a fairly regular basis. And that's not obviously something that any business can afford in today's world when competition is so high and somebody is willing to provide the same service who's just 1 click away in terms of an access. So you cannot afford to, basically have the problem of performance, because where it'll end up with is your users will probably not return to your website and you'll have a big downturn from a business perspective. So those are the 4 key, very quick findings I wanted to share with you from a performance perspective. So less than 2 seconds, 18% instantaneously. People have problems when there is traffic and spikes in traffic, and if that happens, then 20% of them basically won't come back. And what happens if they don't come back? Of course, a very simple, chart here to illustrate the impact of slower pages. If you are an e-commerce site, it basically leads to abandoned carts. And anybody will tell you that in this day of gross merchandise value, abandoned cart means no shopping. No shopping means, no revenue for the top line. And that's basically pretty much a disaster from a business perspective. So you want to make sure that this situation of people abandoning carts because they could not actually, get to their shopping, experience, get through their shopping experience in a seamless manner is something that you would certainly want to avoid. And not only if it's shopping, imagine the same thing if it's just a SaaS application, you're trying to upload your expense receipts or trying to put in invoices or you're trying to do something else. If you can't actually complete the transaction, then basically the end result is that you're not having a good business outcome from that. So you want to make sure that performance is not hindering your business operations. The second dimension of the research that I was mentioning earlier is about mobile. And we know that, here in India, certainly we all know, mobile is very much there. And that theme came through loud and clear for us as well from a research perspective. And everybody loves mobile. Probably it goes without saying that everybody loves mobile. An interesting fact that some of you may or may not know, India is one of the top 3 countries in the world in terms of percentage of internet traffic that comes from mobile devices. So actually 65% of India's internet traffic is from mobile devices, and that includes smartphones, tablets, and so on. And as a relative measure, in the US, it's about 22%. So we are far ahead of many countries in the world in terms of our usage of mobile. So if you are trying to, deliver experiences to Indian users, the mobile element of your experience that you deliver is absolutely critical, because that's where most of the users are accessing your content from. What are some of the findings on that dimension? 3 of them are illustrated here. First of it is that the number of consumers who are making purchases over the mobile device has more than doubled, and this is a global number. And you can see some stats here in terms of when we did the research last in 2009 on this particular dimension. to now, the percentage is more than double, which means consumers are far more comfortable making purchases on the mobile device than they ever were. This is not to say that people, the majority still happens through other means, but you can see the trend very clearly, especially in a place like India where mobile phone users are far more, comfortable with the technology, that they'll start to be, make a lot more purchases on the mobile device. And some of the recent trends you've seen in terms of app-only companies and mobile-only websites and so on are just, further affirmation of this trend. The second finding that here you'll see in terms of why would somebody want to go to a desktop, it again comes back to performance. Because 76% prefer shopping on a desktop because it's faster. What that means is if it were actually equally fast or the experience were equally good on a mobile device, they probably wouldn't go to the desktop. It's just that as a consumer, you are putting them through one more hoop because you're not able to deliver experiences on the mobile device. But their preference continues to remain or grow towards having a mobile experience. So being able to deliver desktop-like experience or maybe even better experiences on the mobile device will certainly make a big difference in terms of satisfying that demand for mobile usage. And lastly, you'll see the engagement by device type here. You'll see 3 device types: tablets, desktops, and mobiles. And you can see the engagement consistently being higher on the mobile device, whether it happens to be a tablet or it happens to be the smartphone. And that should not be very surprising for us, because if you think about how we use the internet, it's far easier to do it on our mobile devices than the desktop. It happens to be at home or it happens to be in the office. Much of the time we are on the move, and so using a mobile device makes a lot of sense for us. It makes it easier. So these were 3 of the findings that we had on the mobile side. When it comes to actual spend, look at the numbers here. What we are seeing is that basically consumers who make purchases once a week, which are basically the frequent shoppers, and they are the people who give us the most money or conduct the most transactions or bigger users of the internet and internet-based applications. Most of them actually prefer to do it on the mobile devices again. Cell and tablet at 35% and desktop at 15%. Again, further proof of the point that you have to be able to deliver your experiences on the mobile device. And if you do it, the returns are pretty rich. As you can see here, the average spending on that device is pretty high compared to the desktops. So even though somebody may go to a desktop, they tend to be a person who's not a big spender. Whereas if you actually calculate the average spend on a mobile device, it's almost like 60% higher than on a desktop, $1,500 to about $2,400. So that's a fairly substantial jump in terms of per user revenue based on device. And all of these findings, right, that we've been talking about are just further affirmation of the fact that you need to be able to deliver your experiences fast, and you need to be able to deliver it on mobile devices. And one of the ways that people have been trying to deliver mobile experiences is by adopting something called as responsive design or responsive web design, which is what RWD stands for. And it's a fairly recommended methodology. What it does is it basically says there is just one website or one website that will deliver content, whether it happens to be on the desktop or it happens to be on the mobile device, and the site will responsively understand where the request is coming from and reformat and repurpose the content to make it available on the device. So RWD is good. Google, for example, recommends you use RWD to improve your SEO and search rankings. So it's a great thing. Whereas when you actually, and I'll show you some stats in a little bit, when you actually start deploying RWD, what are some of the challenges you run into and what the impact of that could be in terms of this, impact on delivering across multiple devices is something you have to keep in mind when you adopt responsive design, whether it happens to be for your websites and apps and so on, right? So RWD is good, but there are some challenges, and we'll talk about what those challenges are as you try to address the mobile issue. So those were the, at a very quick high level, the 9 key findings from our global research that I wanted to share with you. The key takeaway, of course, is that, performance matters, it's fast, and you need to be able to deliver those fast experiences on a mobile device. So if that's our objective as a business, we want to do this, what are some of the challenges that underlie us? And if we understand those challenges better, then I think we can do a better job collectively at being able to satisfy those customers in terms of their expectations. And that's kind of what I want to do next, is to give you a little bit of a deeper insight on what some of the challenges are. Because everybody, when the research shows that you want to be fast, you want to be on mobile, it's pretty clear you want to do it, then what's stopping us from doing it? Well, let's look at some numbers, right? And I just kind of picked out some numbers specifically for India. For those of you who are familiar with Akamai, you would know that we publish a report called State of the Internet on a quarterly basis. It's a public report, freely available. You can go to the website stateoftheinternet.com and download and see a lot of visualizations of the internet on that website. And I just picked up some numbers there in terms of where India stands from a internet kind of usage speed perspective. And these are some numbers you'll see here. To put this into perspective, that average speed that you see there of 2.4 places India somewhere close to 116th out of 144, 145 countries that we typically track, which is obviously not a particularly impressive number. If you think about other countries in Asia Pacific, South Korea, for example, has an average speed of close to 25 Mbps, which is, compared to India, is blazingly fast. And if you've ever been to South Korea, you can experience that performance on your mobile device. The other interesting number here is that greater than 10 Mbps of 1.6%, and that's the penetration of connections, which actually illustrate, show that kind of speed. It's fairly low at 1.6. There are many countries in Asia as well which are greater than 50%. And the reason that 10 Mbps is kind of a critical number is because that's the speed at which you can start to see really good quality, high definition video without too much buffering, without too much interruption and pixelation and so on. So it's a fairly good indicator in terms of the experience that the end user will get. And so I just want to share these numbers with you from a India perspective before we get into the technical kind of side of what the actual challenges are. And the first challenge that I want to share with you is in terms of size. So we all know we want to go fast. The performance is important. And performance will be fast if this page, the size of the page that you have to load is actually less. But the reality is, if you, as this website graphic here shows, the number of objects and the size of a web page over the last few years has actually been growing. And growing to the point that today it's about 1.6 MB. That's just the basic, size of the web page that has to be picked up from the origin, transported over the public internet, and delivered to your website. Delivered to your device and rendered in the browser. And that huge increase in the number of objects and the size of the website, you can imagine, will have a direct impact on performance. So when you're trying to improve performance, you have to understand that you have to do it in the context of a higher page size. And before we think that, hey, I'll do something to reduce my page size, it's not that easy to reduce your page size. And why is that? Because the kind of experiences that you want to deliver are far richer today than they were 3 or 4 years ago. No longer are we going to, go back to a static text only, white background, simple kind of web page. That's no longer engaging for us. We want to have far richer experiences. There are a lot more, connections to third-party content, social media, so on and so forth, which make your website actually a lot richer in order to download and view. And that's the environment in which you have to actually be able to, deliver the content. The second part of that rich experience on the web is images. So here are some numbers you can see here in terms of 63% of page weight comes from images, and number of images is high, 60 here, and so on. So the key impact of that is in terms of when you deliver web pages to the user and you're trying to deliver an image-rich experience, you have to make sure that the images are appropriately formatted, sized, and actually delivered in a manner that does not impact the performance. And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, because you have to make sure that you understand the end user's environment in terms of bandwidth, in terms of device characteristics, in terms of kind of format supported and so on, before you can deliver the right image at the right resolution with the right kind of compression and so on. So that's a becoming a very big challenge in terms of companies trying to improve the richness of the experience while maintaining performance. And so managing images becomes very critical in terms of how you can actually go out and deliver the experience to your users. And the third one is in terms of this ubiquitous use of responsive web design to deliver across different devices. You'll see an interesting chart here, right? What this chart is telling you is, as you go from left to right, the size of the resolution of the device increases. Happens to be a small 4-inch, 5-inch smartphone on the left, all the way through to a high-end HD desktop monitor on the right. But you can see that the size of the images and in general the overall size of the web page is actually not that different when you go from left to right. This is actually one of the fundamental problems with responsive web design, is while it does actually format the content or tries to format the content in terms of the end user device, it's actually not very efficient in making sure that the traffic that needs to go out to the device is as optimized as it can be. Because if you think about the amount of difference in size, is about say 1.1 through to 1.2 KB from an overall perspective, and 726 to 820 approximately from an images perspective. That's not a huge difference considering the difference in resolution between a small 5-inch screen smartphone all the way through to a high-end desktop on the other side. So you're actually wasting a lot of bandwidth by sending a lot of data that the user actually cannot use on his device, because he simply doesn't have that kind of resolution or capacity to view that rich an image. So it's important to optimize the delivery of your images and the delivery of your content to the kind of device that you're actually delivering on as you adopt responsive web design. And that's something to keep in mind as well in terms of a challenge to overcome as you go out and deliver experiences. The next challenge I want to share with you is around APIs. So APIs, and basically what I'm referring to here is mobile apps are all a rage these days. Great. Mobile apps are basically use an API-based mechanism to access content and deliver it to your smartphone or tablet, which is great. There is a perception that APIs are actually smaller in kind of payload and do things faster because of that. The underlying reality is quite the opposite. And if you see why this is, it's because APIs are still very much in a nascent stage. There's a fair amount of, shall I call it, inefficiency in the way these things work, and a lot of optimization that needs to be done to make sure that your API-based performance of your mobile apps is as good or better even than maybe your desktop sites, which typically rely on HTML for their content. So from a organization's perspective, one needs to keep in mind that APIs are not small, and optimizing APIs is an important part of the challenge that you need to overcome in terms of delivering the experience again to the end users. So if you want to deliver those fast experiences on mobile devices, you need to make sure that you take into account that page sizes are increasing. So how do you actually optimize for greater payloads? How do you optimize for images, because they are a big component of the overall page weight? How do you make sure that that responsive web design and the impacts of delivering across different devices don't cause you to make over downloading and heavier content be a problem on the customer side? And last but not the least, how do you make sure that you're optimizing for API-based performances so that the user, even if he's using an app which is based on APIs, or these days, of course, single-page websites also use APIs, and those experiences can be as quick and as efficient as possible. So these are some of the challenges which underlie any organization trying to go out and meet those customer expectations that I shared with you earlier from a research perspective. So on one side, the customer expectations continue to increase and are going through the roof, while on the other side, the technical challenges in terms of being able to meet those expectations continue to stay fairly daunting, and one needs to find ways of actually overcoming those. And why do we need to overcome these challenges? Because they are basically a roadblock in terms of some of the things we are trying to do from a business perspective, right? And I've kind of given a few examples here, like you're launching a new site or an app and you want greater take up of that, you want people to download and have a good experience, you're preparing for flash sales, holiday seasons, you're trying to manage and control your expenditure by trying to not have to grow your infrastructure in line with the number of users that are growing and in line with the number of business transactions and volume of traffic you're seeing. And last but not the least, and probably in many ways I would say the most important, is enhancing brand image and customer loyalty. Because if you think about it, for most people who transact primarily on the internet, it's that experience of the website or the app which is the primary determinant of how they view your brand or view your image. So for all the other investments that we make in brand building and image and advertising and so on and so forth, finally when kind of the rubber hits the road and the person goes onto your website or goes onto your app and tries to actually do the transaction, if his or her experience isn't good, then certainly it's going to have a pretty poor impact in terms of your image. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And these are the kinds of roadblocks that you'll hit from a business perspective if we can't solve the challenges effectively. And what I'll do very briefly over the next few minutes is to talk about some solutions that that you can use to actually overcome some of these challenges and go out and deliver those experiences to your customers. The first of these solutions that I'd like to call out is something that we like to call as we refer to as ION. Basically, it's a web performance acceleration product. What that means is it takes content and websites and apps and makes them faster in terms of delivering it to the end user. And for those of you who know Akamai, we are basically the world's largest cloud services content delivery company, spread across the globe. We have, carry about 15 to 30% of the world's internet traffic on a daily basis. We are within a very small, more than 90% of the world's internet users are within one internet hop away from us, or one network hop away from an Akamai Edge server. All that means is we are using the power of the platform, the Akamai Intelligent Platform, to deliver these anytime, anywhere experiences for your end users. And we do that through ION in a few ways. One is we can actually reduce the transit time, and we do that through a very smart algorithm that always dynamically picks the shortest route from wherever your end user is to wherever your origin content is. And that is typically an order of magnitude or many times faster than going through the public internet, and that's how we reduce the transit time. We reduce the request and the payload size through compression technologies and through lots of intelligent, protocol optimizations that actually deliver this content to the end user faster. We have technology that makes it faster for browsers to render the content. And last but not the least, our network is not just fixed line. We work with pretty much every single mobile network operator in the world, and we are increasingly in their mobile core network and slowly moving out even further into the edge to reduce the amount of time that you have from a cellular or a mobile network perspective to actually go out and deliver the content. So ION as a product is basically focused on helping the website owner accelerate his or her content to the end user, whether it happens to be a SaaS application you're delivering or it happens to be a website or a commerce shopping site or a mobile app. ION can help you by accelerating your performance right from wherever your origin is all the way through to your end user. The second solution is called image converter. I told you how images are a big challenge and one that you have to overcome. For those of you who deal with a lot of images on your website, you would know that there is a fair amount of effort that goes into creating many different formats, many different renditions, many different sizes and resolutions of images, and how do you pick the right kind of image to deliver out to your device and so on. And what image converter, the solution that I outlined here does, is it can dynamically, basically, dynamically through a query string parameters, resize the image and crop the image and change backgrounds and so on and so forth to go out and deliver the content to your end user in a format that you want, without the need for you to have a whole lot of complexity around the whole image library that you maintain. So it kind of manipulates the image in the cloud and does it in conjunction with all the acceleration capabilities that we have, and caches a lot of the static content on the edge, so it gets delivered out to your users much faster than they otherwise would, while also simplifying the whole process of managing those images. So image converter would help you solve some of your image delivery and image optimization problems. The third set of solutions, broadly referred to in Akamai as cloudlets, are focused on making sure that the experience of developing and maintaining and operating a website is become simpler. If you think about it, I would say, I'm old enough to remember the ERP era. Application development and application maintenance was a big challenge, and people always look for ways to optimize and simplify operations and maintenance of their applications. Today, the website complexity is reaching the same level of, or I would say has already reached that level of complexity. There's lots of third-party content. There's lots of back-end connections you have to make. There's a lot of cycles of development that you go through. Sometimes very, very fast. You have to keep releasing new versions and new features and new promotions on your website. So all that stuff requires basically a very complex IT operation to support it. And what cloudlets do is to simplify that process a whole lot by giving you unique capabilities that allow you to accelerate the development, accelerate the testing, accelerate the rollout of those things that you're trying to do on your website and apps. So some names here like phased release, for example, will let you release your website in a phased manner by only allowing certain users to almost like beta test. You can have IP or geo access, which will allow you to block your website or deliver a certain version of your website to certain sets of users based on geo blocking. Or you could also use it as a security mechanism. For example, if you don't want users from a certain country or a certain region to access your website, you can just block them out and serve them some other content saying, sorry, not available in your region, kind of thing, right? You can do a lot of that kind of stuff without the need to develop code and build that into your complex infrastructure on the back end. You can offload all of these things to the Akamai platform just through a web UI-based configuration, and then Akamai will take care of that in terms of handling that kind of a condition that you've put. So in some ways, what we refer to this as is moving your business logic out to the edge of the public internet, and by doing that, you're offloading a lot of complexity from your own infrastructures and letting the Akamai Intelligent Platform take care of that for you. And lastly, I mentioned, of course, APIs, a very, very critical element of how the internet is being used. And yes, we can accelerate APIs as well. And by improving the reliability and user experience of mobile apps through better use of APIs, we can improve experiences. So as a point of reference, every day today, we deliver about 210 or 212 billion API calls every single day on the Akamai platform, and that's just a stat from last month that we were looking at. And that number has grown 89% in the last year, whereas the normal HTML traffic has grown about 68%. So the API traffic is growing even faster, which indicates two things. One, people are becoming app friendly, and second, even websites are being redesigned to use the same API. So in either way, you need to be able to make sure that your API based performance is actually as good or better than your static HTML performances, and that's where the API prioritization cloudlet can also help in making sure that you can actually deliver content better. You get greater flexibility and control, and if you so choose, give them a different kind of a response when you're under heavy load. And this is also something that's very excuse me, important in terms of managing the experience of the end user on your website. So these are just 4 solutions that I want to call out for you. Ion for performance, image converter to manage your image complexities, cloudlets to simplify your development and your infrastructure operations, and lastly the API prioritization capabilities to make sure that your mobile apps and API based websites are performing as well and can deliver the experiences to your users. So very quickly, we wanted to make performance fast. We've talked about how we can do it through Ion and so on. We wanted to deliver on mobile devices, so we need to make sure that it's responsive, because it's a good thing. But then to manage the responsive web design impact, we have things like image converter and cloudlets to simplify the complexity of development. And so we're doing it fast. We're doing it on mobile devices. So the question becomes, is that enough? So let's kind of try and answer that question by using an analogy, right? So let's say you had a basic website, it didn't have really much, and then you went and did all the nice things in terms of making it fast. It was works on different roads. It's like a nice shiny race car, and it's working perfectly fine with larger engines and so on and so forth. And then you put this car out to test. You take it out on the road, which means like you launch your website or your app to your users, and then this happens. So think about this. You spent all that money and time and effort in making that car as good as it can be, and you're stuck on a road on which you have no control. Why? Because there's a lot of traffic that you didn't want. And that is typically what a denial of service attack looks like if you are in a website. It's just basically crowding out all the good people and good users who want to come through a lot of malicious traffic coming to your website. And this is a fundamental security problem on the internet. If you are doing anything on the internet, you should basically assume that you're going to be attacked. I mean, there's a standard joke in the industry that says there are only 2 types of people on the internet, right? Those who've been attacked and those who don't know they've been attacked. Everybody actually, basically been attacked. You just don't know it. So this denial of service attack is one of the fundamental problems, in addition to a lot of other complexities, which I won't get into today for reasons of time, but lots of security challenges in the internet. So if you are delivering an app, you're delivering a website and so on, you have to make sure that in addition to making it fast, making it work on mobile devices, you have to provide security against things like denial of service attacks. And reason being that in that situation, if the car is not moving, or in your case, in our case, the website is not working or the app is not functional, it has a very, very big impact on business. I mean, these are some numbers from a study that was done in terms of, what does the site going down cost you in terms of revenue. And independent of what number you look at, it's a fairly large number in terms of impact to the business. So you cannot afford to be in a situation where your website is not available. So remember, if you go back, kind of recollect the earlier trends I had mentioned from a research perspective, during peak traffic times, you want performance to be good, and a DDoS attack is like a super peak traffic time. So you have to be able to make sure that the website functions well during those kinds of times as well. So it's important that you make sure that you actually protect your digital properties adequately as well. So with that, let me share with you very quickly 2 or 3 examples of customers who've been using some of Akamai's products and the kind of experiences they've had. One is a customer of Ion. This is a company called Bluedy. They are a mobile app-based company based in China. They actually provide a mobile app for their users to actually interact with it. You can see some very image-rich kind of image here on the this is a picture of their app. They're actually a company that's based in China and has this app that helps people of the gay lesbian community get closer to each other and have an interaction and make friends and so on. So it's a very targeted app. And when they implemented ION, this is the kind of performance improvement that they saw. Right? It's a pretty significant impact in terms of the kind of performance. And while performance technically is undoubtedly a lot better and consistent with Akamai, just in the last 3 to 4 months, they've also seen a pretty significant increase in their take-up of the number of users on their platform and the number of usage and depth of usage on their platform. And all that translates to them in terms of greater engagement, greater satisfaction for their users, and eventually into a monetization model. So that's the kind of impact that better performance can have. Another customer of ours who's using the image converter as an example. There's a guild group. They wanted to basically, as a part of the responsive web design methodology, they were moving to that responsive website to replace their existing m.dot site. They realized that images are going to be a problem, and they started using image converter. And as you can see here, they basically reduced the page size by half and increased the conversion twice. And that's a pretty significant business outcome in terms of what they're trying to do. So as you look to adopt more the responsive web design methodologies and implement more image-rich websites, something to think about in terms of what the impact of that for your users are. And lastly, an airline company here, this is an Israeli airline, El Al. They were restructuring their website. They wanted to basically, have a lot of ability to maintain the what is called here as link equity for SEO, which means, when people search for them online, they wanted to make sure that those URLs still work, whereas they were in the process of revamping their website. And you can see the quote here from their web and technologies coordinator in terms of what they did. But by using the Edge Redirector Cloudlet, without doing any coding on their website and trying to put lots of if-then-else conditions and what kind of translation of the URL from what it comes into where it should go and so on, by using the Edge Redirector Cloudlet, they're basically able to roll this out very seamlessly across an entire global user base. And so that's the kind of simplification from an operations and maintenance perspective that the cloudlets can bring as you build and maintain your websites. So I just wanted to share with you some examples of customers, global customers who are actually doing using these technologies to go out and do real things in the world and kind of derive some pretty significant benefits. So hopefully you found these customer examples a little representative of the kind of uses that people can have from the technologies. So let me very quickly conclude. I think we're pretty much getting on to time here. This is I think it's self-evident here based on the research and based on the data I've presented. Now, if we are out on the internet today and we are delivering content and commerce to customers, performance is basically non-negotiable. You have to be able to deliver it fast. You have to deliver it on mobile devices, and you have to do it securely. None of this is optional. It's not a case of this or that or that. It's really this and that and probably a few more things as well if you are to go out and be successful on the internet. So my final call out to all you guys is if you are, as you go out and plan your digital experiences for your end users, make sure that you keep these factors in mind. Make sure you understand what the technology solutions are available that can actually make a difference to you, and start adopting some of these so that not only make your life easier as you go out and deliver these capabilities, but also makes the end user experience far better than what you would have on the public internet. And that's kind of my final call out to you guys is make sure that you understand performance matters, mobile is now, and security is certainly non-negotiable.